As you see, this is not Paul, the man behind the DrivingMaul. This is Herman, the ghost behind the DrivingMaul. But anyway, we are here at the DrivingMaul's All Blacks edition, the best place for opinions and predictions and overall chat about the mighty and beautiful All Blacks. But, and we're going to kick off the show right in the end, where I think everyone knows, they lost. As we all know in New Zealand and even outside New Zealand, this is not, we're not used to this. But we're going to have ourselves a little therapy session today, talk through the loss, handle it, see how we feel. So basically, I think we're going to start up the show, and I'm going to go first with you, Ash, and then you can fill in after that, Paul. How does it feel 4 days after a loss?
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, probably a bit more analytical, and you start to sort of think, you get a bit more frustration happening a few days later. You're going through, 7 cycles of the grief or whatever it is? You go through each thing. I can't remember them all. This is too hard. But, yeah, interesting enough. It's just sort of like sitting today or yesterday. I can't remember which it was. And it's sort of like, just frustrated, actually. Frustrated would probably sum it up. Not in any way sort of, negative or, feeling like, oh no, it's the end of the earth at all. At the end of the game, it was just like, oh crap, we lost.
We need changes. Changes. Change them all.
Change them all. Change the coach. He doesn't even know what he's doing. This is like, but something going on, and so anyway, I suppose just the frustration, really.
Like those two old guys in you remember this movie Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy?
Yep.
In the end, put the machines back on. Put the machines back on. Referee, 5 extra minutes. Come on.
Actually, sorry, I have to mention it. It was a nice segue in Coming to America when the African prince throws the two old guys a bit of money on the side of the road. But that's segue. Sorry, totally not rugby, non-related.
Wow, and come here for your best in 80s pop culture. The All Blacks retro show when the All Blacks used to lose. My word. I do too much analytical stuff and things that actually I don't get that emotional about rugby anymore. Unfortunately, occasionally I do. Like I did when Auckland were beating Tasman, but on the whole, I don't get too which surprised me because I didn't think I was an Auckland fan until I saw them beating Tasman. So that was a bit of a strange experience for me the other week. But I wasn't. It's not every week. We know they're going to win again next week, weekend after next. So no big deal. We can see that it was more they lost than they got beaten, and we can see how they're going to come back and win again. So no big deal. It's nice to see that other people have a winning game occasionally.
And the other thing is that the All Blacks don't actually lose. The other team just gets a few more points than them. That's all.
Yeah, we know that.
Actually, we better put a rider before we carry on. This is like just in case there's some South African fans getting upset that we're not referring to the Springboks and how well they did. Is that this is an All Black centric show, so we might talk about the All Blacks a bit more.
but we love you all Springboks fans. We do.
Yeah, we do.
We do. But sometimes we want some alone time,
And just as a quick reminder, Andre has said, "Hi gents, I'll become a Patreon tomorrow if you allow me to stay." Andre, our South African friend. And you can become a Patreon and help support the show by going to Patreon, patreon.com/DrivingMaul, and help support the show. So just a quick reminder about that.
Good stuff. All right, if we move on here, I think like the first question I want to ask you both is, are we too hard on Beauden Barrett?
No, that's the expectation we have of our All Black players. The reason why the All Blacks win as much as they do is because we have these high levels of expectations on what they should be delivering. So no, not at all. We haven't been too hard on Beauden Barrett. We've been highlighting issues in his game and saying that they are something that he needs to look like. And I'm sure that he realizes it himself. The way that he kicked on Saturday night, I'm sure he's sort of thought, I have to look at that part of my game. I mean, he's not going to beat himself up to a pulp on it, but he will sort of, like all Blacks, I mean, all professional rugby players analyze their games. They probably focus more on what they have to improve than the good parts. That's what professional players do, but I'm sure he'll be doing the same.
Yeah, but I mean, sorry, Paul, because he's been getting some flack both from like serious pundits and quite a lot in the internet discussion forums I've been around. He's a lot of pointing towards Beauden Barrett.
His kicking was not up to modern day international kicking at the end of the day. Now, is that his fault or is that the coach's fault? Knowing that he's not up to that level, he hasn't been for a number of years, and not looking at other options. So maybe that is a blind spot. And I think there's another blind spot we'll probably come on to later that the All Blacks have, but I think there's a blind spot there around his kicking.
What do you feel, Ash?
Yeah, look. Sorry, excuse me. Is the beer coming up again? It's the no, definitely the kicking.
The loss has driven us to drink.
It's driven me to drink. No, but it's kicking that's the issue. There are other elements of his game that need to be looked at as well, but they're sort of micro elements, for want of the modern day term of these days. I think the big sort of elephant in the room is the goal kicking. He needs to be more consistent. The wide out kicks he missed, or he got in fact, all good and well. It's those ones that were sort of like about 10 metres, 15 metres to the side of the post that he hit the uprights on. That's the ones that he needs to nail.
I mean, Larkham didn't used to kick, and no one sort of complained about him as not being a good fly half. So. I just think maybe he doesn't, maybe he shouldn't be the first choice kicker. That's the main thing here, and there are very few nowadays kickers who aren't tens, admittedly. It was fun at the weekend to see and talk to Sophie Fisher, who is a lock for North Harbour, who does the kicking for them in the Farrer Park Cup. So that was great to see. But we just need to get away from this fact that it doesn't have to be the 10 that kicks. Other people can do place kicking too.
Yeah, Paul and I talked about this on Monday night, and it's just like, Beauden Barrett doesn't kick for the Hurricanes. Geordie Barrett does. So if they're going to go with Geordie Barrett, then why wouldn't you give him the kicking? If Geordie Barrett's not playing and we don't have a kicker in the team, then Beauden Barrett's the kicker. But when you've got someone who has got a better percentage rate for kicking, then why wouldn't you give it to him? It doesn't make any sense. And that's sort of coming back to when Herman, you asked sort of like, how do you feel? It's just that frustration, because there's things that don't make sense, that are just logical.
Yeah, but I guess what I would like to raise here is because I rewatched the game now, and there are, for sure, Beauden Barrett doesn't have a great game, but there are some other players that, I mean, pretty much been flying on the radar for some criticism, had like really poor games. And the first two in my mind is Ryan Crotty and Sam Cane. Both of them are usually like stalwarts for the All Blacks, but that's by far the worst test I ever seen by Ryan Crotty. And Sam Cane, that's going to be one of his least three best tests for the All Blacks ever. And no one is really criticizing them.
Well, yeah. Ryan Crotty shouldn't have been playing.
No, you can also make that. Was he really back from his concussion? Makes you wonder a little bit, because he took some really bad decisions out there.
Arsham mentioned one of these last night, that in the review about the number of that he crashed it up when he should have passed out wide towards the end of the game, I think it was, and so forth. Now he may be over his concussion, but is he back up to being sort of test match ready is a different thing. So, but he shouldn't be on there because of the concussion side of things anyway. We need to just be put into a nice holiday till the end of the year.
Sorry, to be put out to pasture.
I thought about saying that for a second, and then I changed my mind.
It's okay. You know that I'm going to say it. Look, it's interesting because I think Herman and me in our offline moments last night were referring to the Sam Cane, and I also threw in Kieran Reid. I thought Kieran Reid was fairly anonymous as well. So you're looking at your experienced players who you need to stand up in a situation like they had on Saturday night, didn't stand up. And that's the concern, I suppose, is that you get into a tight situation, and even Ben Smith, although Ben Smith did have a good game, but in that last 5 minutes, he made a few wrong calls as well, where you just don't expect those experienced players to do that, or they haven't been for the last few years.
I mean, I worry when you bring up Kieran Reid here, I worry for me is, as I remember it in the Lions series last year also, I thought he didn't really seem like he controlled his team or the ref when it was really crunch time. And we see the same thing again. I mean, I'm speculating now, but somehow I think if McCall was still playing and he was captain, when they get that last scrum, he would say, you go back and do the drop kick and that's it. There's no one looking for, we got a better overlap here, blah, blah, blah,
And I think part of that is that since the last Rugby World Cup, this crowd have not really been put in this kind of situation very often, and that's And I mean, one of the big things that I'm going to go back to the England 2003 team was a term called teacup, which was thinking clear under pressure. And I just don't think, this side hasn't had the experience of being in this situation to necessarily get themselves out of it, whereas the All Blacks pre-2015, obviously when they went to Ireland and scored with the final play of the game to maintain the winning record, for example, and a lot of the situations like that. And I just don't think this side perhaps has got that experience of these tight situations.
Absolutely. Just not having, you need to be put under pressure so that you can see what you're made of. And maybe that was also part of the plan on Saturday night, is to make sure that they got an element of pressure. And when they'll sit down and analyze it, they'll see that they didn't handle the pressure very well at all. When you look at the Lions series last year, obviously there's a lot of pressure in that. But I suppose because you're not actually playing a country per se, it's a different type of pressure. And I don't know. I just sort of think the biggest thing for me on Saturday night is that they didn't handle the pressure moments very well. Yeah, they made poor choices.
When it's four countries, there's a ready-made excuse with the Lions. Yeah. Let's be honest, to get out of it if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to, exactly. But I mean, we'll focus on the last 15 minutes of the game, and even break it down the last 5. But if you go back to when Geordie Barrett throws the ball into Willie LaRue, up to that point, things weren't working. So, you don't do the quick throw-in when things aren't working. You take time to settle it down. We'll just have a standard line out, and we'll get back into our patterns, and away we go. You don't, when there's been a succession of errors leading up to, in fact, the reason why that line out happened was an error as well that gave the ball to the South Africans. So there's a succession of errors that have led up to that moment. You go stop. It's the last thing you do is try and speed up the game when you're making mistakes. When you're making mistakes, you need to slow the game down. You want to speed up the game when things are going right and you're putting the team opposition under pressure.
I agree. For me, it looked more like Geordie Barrett thought it was a Super Rugby game. That's basically how you play Super Rugby, but that's not how you play Test Rugby.
There was also a lack of communication in that moment too, because what you can see is Rieko Ioane is taking steps away from the sideline when Geordie Barrett throws it in. Now, if Rieko Ioane was in sync with Geordie Barrett, he doesn't take those steps away. He stays where he was or even moves closer, and that is an easy grab for him. But because he's taken a couple of steps away from the sideline, he's now stretching for the ball, and Willie LaRue's basically in a better position to grab it.
And this comes back to the Henry's video that we've talked about in the last two nights of being a process-driven team rather than a situational team. Is that they don't seem to read the situation very well at times. This is what we do. This wins us games. Let's go off and go and do it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But if we move on then, boys, then this is going to be, we love to talk about the All Blacks' fantastic depth, and it is true, but how important is Brodie Retallick? Because of All Blacks' last 4 losses, he's been out of 3 of them. It's basically, it seems when he's not playing, they are at risk of losing almost every single time. Is he really that important for this super All Blacks team? Is Brodie that important?
I don't think he's, look, at the end of the day, the team can win without him. Okay. The players are there to fill the gap, but that's what they're doing is they're filling a gap. You don't replace Brodie Retallick. If you look this season with the performances that he's been putting in, you'd say he's the best All Black out there on the field by a long way.
He's the best player in the world by a long way, I would say.
Long way, yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to be that arrogant and say that.
No, but the neutral Swede is here confirming what you already know. He is the best in the world.
So you definitely are missing a trick when he's not playing, but the player stocks are still there to allow the All Blacks to still win. Obviously, Brodie can just make it more comfortable. One thing I saw that in terms of that locking position was it was great to see Patrick Tuipulotu come on the field, and he made an impact. So whilst Sam Whitelock and Scott Barrett were actually hitting a brick wall, weren't actually making a dent in the South African defensive line, Tuipulotu came on and was going past the advantage line by a couple of meters even. So he did make an error with the knock-on in an attacking position early on when he came on, but he made a difference when he came on. That was great to see.
Yeah, okay, so if we're going into analysis mode now, rather than just opinion, for me, one of the things that one of the key plays that the All Blacks do, and it's something that they've kind of been working on over the last couple of years, is the 2 forwards or running at the line, and then at the last minute, a little pop pass on to move the point of attack so that the defender's off balance. And what they didn't do and the South Africans deliberately were coming up quick to try and shut that down, make the timing of that more difficult. And one of the big problems was the person receiving that ball was far too static, and then he was making that pop pass before he started moving. And so the defender hadn't already locked onto him, hadn't committed, and so could readjust themselves for the tackle, and that's why they weren't getting over the advantage line. Is that pop pass was too static and too early, and their execution of that was really bad.
3 meters away from the defensive line, basically, roughly, 2 to 3 meters away from the defensive line, doing that tip pass for that player that you're passing to hit the gap. Well, the defensive player to just wait for the pass to be made and go straight onto him. So you need to be doing that right at the defensive line. The closer you can do it to the defensive line, the more effective the player receiving the ball is going to be in breaking that defensive line. And on the weekend it was 2 to 3 meters before the defensive line. Plenty of time.
And that is one of Scott Barrett's key skills. And one of the things about how he wasn't as bad as the other players, but even he wasn't doing it very well at the weekend.
No. I mean, you go back the week before, and that combination between Scott Barrett and Frizzell, or Frizzle, however you want to pronounce it, was right on that defensive line. And the reason why that Shannon Frizzell was so effective in that game against Argentina was that Scott Barrett's passes were basically when the defender was right on top of him. And that means that that they just couldn't adjust onto Shannon Frizzell, and he was able to burst through the gap. That's all I have to say about that.
You want to add something, Paul, before we move on?
No, I can't remember what the question was now.
All right. Then you're not worthy. All right, I think we're done
yes,
with
it
the
was
loss.
okay. No, yeah, rewind. Is Brady Retallick that important? No, the All Blacks gave away. Obviously, Geordie gave away that try. They gave away another interception try, and they missed all their kicks, and they still lost by 2 points. They could have easily have won if they hadn't given away those 2 tries. Now, obviously, those tries came out because of pressure. I'm not trying to say it was all down to the All Blacks' poor play, but if they'd maintained their composure, hadn't given those tries away, and had made their kicks, then they'd have won anyway. So no, he isn't that important to them, but he is, as we say, the best player in the world.
But if I do a little like that, I think that's a little bit too much what if about this there, because last year when the All Blacks also were pushed hard by the Springboks in Cape Town, Brody wasn't playing. When Brody was playing, you beat them 57-0.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simplified. I mean, but there is something in it.
No, absolutely. No, there's definitely something in it. It's the fact is that how the ease with which you can win or try and win versus the margin that the extra margin that Brady Retallick brings.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, I remember like when Richie McCaw was still playing, I also heard like from I don't remember whose biography I read, it was an Australian player who said like basically when they looked at the team sheet and saw Richie McCaw playing, they said that's 7 points for All Blacks, no matter what. If he's not in there, that means there's 7 less points. And it's almost a little bit like Retallick is probably worth about 7 points, so like 6-7 points a game. That's what you get from him.
Gonna say
not that he actually scores them, but just by being there.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, agreed. I'm not saying that he's not. The All Blacks are a lesser team without him, but they still have the depth to win to win games.
Yes. Agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. But so we're halfway through the show, so let's leave this loss behind us for now and look ahead. And there is a very, very interesting tour. That's like the big upside of this loss.
I think Arswin was crying there for a second. He was wiping his eyes. I'm sorry. We've put him through enough pain now talking about the loss. Let's move on.
Yeah. No, but the good thing about this loss is, one of the good things about this loss is it makes these next two upcoming games on the road super interesting. So just start like in a general way, start with you, Ash, how would you like to see the All Blacks attacking these 2 next games? First Pumas away and then South Africa.
Well, just before I get to that and leading up to it, so like grey skies are going to clear up, put on a happy face. And then the fact is that, I think the loss for the All Blacks has actually been really good because it's going to sort of mean that they need to sharpen up. And that means, in coming to your question now, or next issue is the fact is that how important are the next 2 games? Because they now seen what they should have learned a lot out of that game on Saturday. And they've now got to bring that into their game plans against Argentina, and then obviously use that as a building point to go to South Africa and prove a point that it was a one-off last Saturday. So there's a massive amount for that's coming up in the next 2 games. It's going to show whether, hey, it was just a blip on the radar in terms of the lead up to the World Cup next year, or actually, hey, everybody, all the other teams around the world are going to get a bit excited because there is hope in Japan.
Yeah, I see. Because just sorry, Paul, we're going to come into it because if they lose one of these 2 games, or like the big miracle, if they actually would lose both of these games, it will pretty much completely change the picture of everything. Then it's all of a sudden, we will be very interesting to see how Steve Hansen handles that, because then it's going to be a little bit of a panic button all of a sudden, like what is going on here? I'm going to go on my fears a little bit later. Paul, let's continue with you first. What are your first general feelings about this tour and how we should approach it?
Well, I'm going to look at it from the other point of view to start off with a second here, is how are Argentina going to approach this next game? If they beat the Wallabies at home, they basically come second in the championship, I think. So, no. If South Africa, first up is All Blacks, Argentina, and South Africa against Wallabies. And if South Africa beat the Wallabies, they pretty much secure the second place. Having only had
We're not securing it, but it looks very good.
They'll be in a better position to come
Yeah,
second.
because they're already 2 points there. I mean, basically, for Argentina to come in second place, they probably need to beat the All Blacks.
Okay, well that's not going to happen.
So Wallabies can beat.
I guess my thought here is, of course, that's 2 wins now, South Africa, isn't it? And the Argentine Pumas have had 2 wins as well. But the Pumas definitely rested a couple of players in that All Blacks game and then brought them back for the Wallabies game and targeted that game more. And I wonder whether they'll do the same again and target the Wallabies game rather than the All Blacks game, and maybe rest a couple of players, because they rested their captain or the Jaguares captain, and they also rested their number 9 for the All Blacks game. So I think there's an element that they might do that again. So, I think what we're going to see here, the one game that I remember watching, going, okay, if there's one game the All Blacks will not lose, it's a quarter-final to France in Cardiff, because it's happened before and they're not going to let it happen twice. And I think we've got that kind of situation going into the final test against the Springboks in South Africa. Is that kind of situation where we are not going to allow this one to. I mean, the focus will be there. I think if you just keep winning, you can't lose a certain element of focus. So I think there'll be more focus on these two, and beware a wounded kind of team.
Paul, sorry for interrupting, but the All Blacks have lost a lot more time than once in South Africa. You know, that is the place they have lost more rugby games than anywhere else in the world.
No, I understand. I think
I'm not sure your Cardiff theory is really working there. I'm not really buying it. I'm sorry.
I just think they'll be more focused on that game. I think they'll have a lot more focus, so therefore they won't lose. Which now I'm just sort of thinking on the fly of, does that make the England game more dangerous than the Ireland game, because they'll be more focused about beating the number 2 team in the world than they will the England game, and maybe a bit complacent in that game in November. But anyway,
that's wishful thinking, I feel. you know that they'll be, out of all those Northern Hemisphere games, they'll be targeting England as their priority. They'll want to beat Ireland. Oh, no doubt about it. Oh, yeah, I think there's an element of, I mean, we're digressing majorly here, but, bigly. But, there's this, animosity is not the right word, but, there's this wanting to beat England at Twickenham is a big thing.
Yeah, and it hurts a lot more to lose against England than against. If Ireland win, fair play. They've been the number 2 in the world. We have a great Kiwi coach. We have New Zealand structures, like everyone can see. Of course they can beat the All Blacks. Look what we're doing. They're copying us. But if England wins, that's like, no.
Think about this. You get there's 2 elements of there if England beats the All Blacks, right, in the Northern Tour. His effect is that you've got a Stephen Jones that's just going to go off in the press, and you've got a loudmouth Aussie that's going to absolutely have a field day, isn't he? Absolutely have a field day. I mean, he'll be part of the journey now, but he's going to have a field day. So it's just like they would be spewing if they let England win in that Northern Tour.
Can you imagine Eddie Jones' grin coming into the press conference after beating him?
Mr. Checker, can I borrow your lucky cat?
We don't all agree that can't happen. For sure, we don't all agree about that.
Just looking at that table, effectively, if the All Blacks, Argentina are tough. Argentina are growing another leg all the time, and that leg's getting nearly full length to be able to help them out. But the fact is that All Blacks will be, the All Blacks will be, if they win that game, they'll basically wrap up the rugby championship. Because South Africa, even if they beat the All Blacks, won't be able to catch them on points. And the fact is that you're still expected to be close, and the All Blacks will probably, even in a losing game against South Africa, still pick up a bonus point. So, yeah, I mean, it's all South Africans around the world that are still believe in that green jersey will be really sort of cheering on the Pumas in a fortnight's time.
Yes, they will. They will for sure. They will, because if Pumas manage to beat the All Blacks and South Africa beat Wallaby, it sets up a grand final for the final round. So, yeah.
And I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that the Argentina could tip over.
I have this fear a bit about the Pumas. They are like, we almost have a full number how to beat the All Blacks. They're there and about, but I'm not really sure we're ready yet. But they are getting, I guess it will happen within 5 years. If it happens next week or in 5 years, but they will get a win eventually. They are good enough for that. And if they keep improving like we're doing right now, they will for sure get that win eventually. But speaking about this, because they are also this, I guess the word so far, the plan is that, just like he did last year, that Shag is going to leave a couple of experienced players. They're not going to travel to Argentina. They're going to travel straight to South Africa and acclimate themselves for the altitude. You think we're going to go that way too now? Again, we're going to send like the prefix, the B team to Buenos Aires. Do they dare to do that? I feel it's kind of a risky move to send the B team to Buenos Aires now. And like the Pumas team, game is already going to be 50,000 crazy artists in there. It's going to be some real noise, real pressure on the ref and so on. I mean, you really want to risk that?
I think they might actually swap it around. I think send a full strength side to Argentina, wrap up the championship, and then do what they did a few years ago when they put Lima Sopoaga as a debut at Ellis Park or whatever it's called these days. So you could go to to Argentina, put a full strength side on, and then you can bring in Richie Mo'unga starting against South Africa, Shannon Frizzell, etc. And so that you could trial a few things out in South Africa.
True, but I think also if you have a World Cup in mind, if they would lose again against South Africa, if South Africa has 2 on the bounce, because you're going to play South Africa in the first game in the World Cup. Because if you lose that one, if you lose, because if South Africa beats the All Blacks 2 times in a row, they're going to have like serious belief that we got the All Blacks number. We know how to beat them. And if there's a lot of if here, but if they would lose, they will mean they face Ireland all of a sudden in the quarterfinal. And it's a shame the draw looks like that. There is a possibility that number 1 and number 2 team can play each other in the quarterfinal. I mean, somehow they should be able to avoid that, I think, in a draw. It should be impossible. They should be in different halves of a draw, but that's not the case. So I think to give South Africa another win or allow them to have another win, I think that's not in All Blacks' plans whatsoever. They want to go there and smash them.
Absolutely, absolutely, totally. And I think you don't just like the team trust their processes. I think the coaches also trust their processes, and they don't change things. If they change things, it makes them look like they're panicking, and that puts a bad feeling through the whole squad. So whatever plans they had prior to the loss with South Africa, you stay the same. You stay the course. You trust your processes. You trust your plans. You don't make any changes. You don't make it look or feel like you're panicking, which I think is a very you stay the course.
Yeah. I read a good comment on the internet, like said something like, there's like nothing in the world that the All Blacks fear, but if they would fear anything, it is a Books team on the up and with belief.
Yep,
absolutely.
Made a lot of sense to me too. Like that's the only thing that's Yep. Their history comes into play again. So, but I'm having this little thing now. Liam Squire is out too now, so you reckon this will be Shannon Frizzell's big opportunity to make that 6 years of his in the All Blacks?
He's got the opportunity.
You think it's good enough?
I think it's got the opportunity to. He probably already has done this now, but is to cement himself in that 33. And I don't think the All Blacks have this far too much of incumbent and owning the jersey, and I think the Frizzell experiment is to be in that 33 and to be taking over after every World Cup, not prior to it.
Agree with you, Paul. But the fact is that if he has two blinders, especially after the loss last week, it really does start to give them that opportunity. You're right. Liam Squire will get that opportunity to sort of because he's the incumbent, to put his case forward.
Mm-hmm.
But if Shannon Frizzell has two absolute blinders, that means that if Liam Squire gets that ability to put his case forward and he doesn't cement it, then Shannon Frizzell's in. So he's basically got all the opportunity in the world to actually basically put his name up in lights and then say, you got to pick me. And then basically it's Liam Squire with the pressure on him to prove that he deserves to be there.
True, but I think he got man of the match, didn't he, against Argentina the other weekend?
Yes.
Now,
deservedly.
But two performances like that will not be enough, because what he showed in that was in the first half was he made the breaks and then got excited and tried to do too much and got his decision making wrong. So he has to play blinders. Blinders does not mean two man of the match performances, because a man of the match performance isn't enough or the incorrect man of the match performance isn't enough to get that place.
Yep. Oh, look, let's forget about man of the match, because at the end of the day, the man of the match award that matters is the one that the coaches give out. So, and as you alluded to, Paul, he tried a bit too hard in that second half, and so didn't quite come off. But in light of what happened against South Africa in Wellington, if he's able to come on and create the impact against a defensive unit if they operate the same way that they're in Wellington, we need someone that breaks that line. And if he does that, then, you're going to be coming up against Ireland squad that's going to be very similar in that defensive mode, and putting up that wall. You're going to need someone that can break it. And if he can show he can break it against South Africa, he's going to have a lot of points behind him to sort of put his hand up and say, you can't leave me out.
But then,
it could be a case of...
Yep. That might be replacing Ardie Surveyor on the bench.
I was just going to say that it could be Ardie Surveyor on the bench, yeah. Because you look at his play and he's, I think, at a pinch capable of playing 7. In that sort of off the bench type player type scenario. He's very mobile.
Yeah. But because another thing for me too, I don't think like Liam Squire in any way has nailed that 6 jerseys as his. I mean, I'm maybe a bit too harsh on him. I really like him in Super Rugby level, but I don't like him that much on Test level. I'm sorry to say. I hope he's not listening. But can you understand where I'm? Can you understand where I'm coming?
Christmas tat for you.
No, but can you understand where I'm coming from? That he's not entirely convincing at Test level.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, look, when he's in that number 6 jersey, it was owned by Jerome Kaino. That's the sort of performance that we're looking for every time that he pulls that jersey on. Now, to be fair, Jerome Kaino wasn't the player that he was at the beginning of his All Black career. But I think Liam Squire's had 2 years in the jersey. The initial fight was with Elliot Dixon, and now sort of like he's had that opportunity, but I don't think that he's quite nailed it as he should have to say, hey, why is anybody even thinking about anybody else?
True.
Yeah.
And we've seen other players come and go, or not come and go, or come and I've just gone blank as the guy's name who's playing for Wellington, who had got a few starts at 6. Fifita, for example, yep. Who've come in, done some wonderful things, but obviously done some stuff that the All Blacks, or not done some stuff the All Blacks wanted. So we have to see. But you're right. But I think there's also an element of every position, or is number of caps going into Rugby World Cup and experience. And I'm not sure there's enough time to replace.
Are there any newbies that really sort of sprung up and? played in 2011, 2015.
The only position was on the right wing, which was Milner, Scudder, and Holo came in with very little experience, which meant that Dag missed out on going. But that was the only position. Not somebody in the centre of the park.
Yeah, true. And what else we have on the show here now? Well, we gotta mention it now since we have it both here at the same time. We gotta. It's this gonna be good or bad news? Yeah, and if this is gonna be good news that the Blues is coming, maybe might be coming back again and being a force in New Zealand rugby. Blues in Auckland. It's just gonna be a good or a bad thing if they can put themselves back up in the top again. Further,
just because Auckland do well, it bears no relationship.
Paul, don't ruin the party. Don't ruin the party now, Paul. We're gonna have a little fun here.
Oh man, sorry, Paul. I'm just putting the party poppers away again. Sorry.
Yeah.
Look, I was thinking again. Yep.
Two things.
All right.
One, the Blues and Auckland have very little playing side connection. There is connection in their sort of social media management side, but not on the playing and coaching side. There is very little connection. And number two, the Auckland have got a World Cup winning coach, which the Blues don't have in Ted.
That's two very fair points.
So, and that's what
the only thing. Yep, sorry.
And let's suppose the Auckland were relegation candidates last year.
A 50-metre penalty on full time to relegate them was classic. Sorry, it came down to the last kick of almost the season type thing. That kick misses, and I think Waikato would have won or got a bonus point or something, and Auckland would have been demoted. And that kick went over, and it was Waikato that went down.
You think of all the teams that would try and send Auckland down, it would be North Harbour.
The only thing I sort of, you've got a bit of spare time to think about lots of things at the moment. So, I think one thing that, is the fact is that it's the vibe, it's Mabo, it's the Constitution. So, that could flow onto the Blues, but apart from, you got to watch the Castle to get it.
The Constitution. That's not an 80. I mean, what the hell? What? Where are we going with this one? It's the Fifth Amendment. If the Auckland are good, the All Blacks are good.
But this is that's where I want to come with.
You'll also understand when Dan Carter said it's going straight to the pool room when he got one of his Man of the Match awards in South Africa. But anyway, but it's just like, that sort of momentum feel. That's the only thing that could go through. But other than that, Paul's right. There's too many differences in the management layers and the player levels, so to speak, that you'd sort of think that any success with Auckland would automatically have some sort of results coming through with the Blues.
Yeah, but I mean, I know this is far-fetched, and dear listeners and viewers, I'm out there right here. I know. But what is, as you all know, is like this old saying, but like a strong Auckland. We're pretty strong evidence now that a shitty Auckland and Blues team is great new All Blacks, because it's been the best period ever for the All Blacks when the Blues and Auckland have been terrible. So can we start messing with the balance of the universe here? If Auckland and Blues all of a sudden start doing good again.
Yeah, exactly. We've now so into Rugby World Cup here, we've got to pray the Blues don't become good, because the All Blacks will lose if they do.
Yeah,
this is where we're going.
That's where
my word!
That's where I'm going. Yeah. And there's strong evidence to suggest it.
But one thing is sort of like, obviously, as Herman alluded to, the saying is when Auckland's strong, All Blacks are strong, and it actually is still correct. It's just the fact is that because you're professional rugby, what you've got is that strength of the quality of the players coming through are going through to other franchises, to other provinces. So I think Paul, might have been one of last year's show, in fact, or I can't remember, but we actually looked at every Mitre 10 Cup squad has an Auckland player in it. Okay, so, and obviously every Super Rugby franchise has a player from the Auckland provincial side, a provincial area, I should say, in it. So the fact is that it's still true that for All Blacks rugby to be strong, Auckland rugby needs to be strong. It's just the fact that their provincial and Blues Super Rugby side don't necessarily have to be strong, but the factory that is Auckland rugby still has to be there to disseminate the players through the rest of the country.
So no worries that Auckland and Blues, if they start and go really good again, we don't have to worry about All Blacks that we're in any way like messing with the balance in the universe. There's no winter coming. That's what you're saying. We don't have to worry about the winter.
There's no whole we don't need to get into a DeLorean. It's okay.
My word, the pop culture references are so mixed and jumbled. It's all just not no.
Okay, Paul, I give you a reference a little bit more like on your level. So we don't have to see a katabasis for all the All Black supporters. You know what a katabasis is?
No.
No, look, it's an old Greek word from a Greek mythology. That's if you have like a big setback, you have to like dig yourself deep down in a hole for several years to get your power and your feeling back so you can climb yourself up again. That's a katabasis. That's more your level, I thought.
To get to reach down into the earth, feel that mana, get it all back together again. The mana is strong in these people.
Yeah.
And sorry for pronunciation. I know it was Maori Language Week last week, and that pronunciation there was awful. Where am I going? I've got no idea. That's okay because I'm running the show today. I can just pass the luck back.
But you own the show, Paul. You can say whatever you want, you know.
I can do. And actually, on your comment of I hope Liam Squire's not watching, having had some conversations this week, I know that basically New Zealand Rugby and Sky TV do watch these shows. So, FYI, yes, we are making a bit of noise and a bit of a splash.
Damn, but I still feel a little bit like that. It's flattering in one way, but since we don't seems like everyone else who do a YouTube shows about New Zealand Rugby get a call from Sky, but no one is calling us, you know. Maybe we're not doing that good job.
Come on. Yeah, come on. We deserve a show on Sky, even if it's at 3:00 in the morning on a Wednesday or something.
And
in the
and
morning.
By the way, Ali, if you're watching, I'm going to be sending you a tweet. So, yeah, about
that. Well, speaking about that, a good last subject for the show. We have a couple of more minutes here to break. So I want to ask you about one person that's kind of separates New Zealand. You know, he's a real some people are for, some people are against. What is your opinion about Justin Marshall?
Oh. I wonder where you go.
Bring it on, Ash.
I had this whole list of names I was thinking you were going to name, and he
wasn't.
No, look, the problem I have with Justin Marshall is that obviously he was a very good All Black. He's in the broadcast commentary team, and the problem that I have with it is the fact that he says so much that is wrong. Referee decisions, etc. Oh, the referee's made this call because of X, Y, and Z. It's just that, no, he hasn't. He's got his arm out for a knock-on. What are you watching? You know, and the problem with that is that there's obviously a lot of people that don't know rugby as well as we do, and they believe what Justin Marshall's telling them because he's an expert, and it's just like, yeah, but you're telling them wrong. And it's just like drives you insane, and it's just like, and then you get all these people that are that been poorly educated because they're listening to Justin Marshall onto all sorts of internet chat rooms and all sorts, saying, "Oh, this happened and that happened and this." It's just like, well, no, he was wrong. His point wasn't valid. He thought that the penalty was for offside, and it's like, no, it wasn't. It's because a guy elbowed a guy in the head. You know.
Now, I think he's got a lot better than he used to be. To be fair, I think he's growing into the role. I think he's better at it than he used to be. I also don't think he's the only commentator or expert or pundit, whatever you want to call them, who doesn't seem to have a ref mic headphone on. There are other people who make the same mistakes. I don't think he's any worse than any other pundit, personally.
No,
Really,
I like Justin Marshall, actually. I'm honest
sick?
about.
Are you sick, man? What is wrong with you? Take your pills.
No, I like him because I think also one thing you sort of alluded to it in a way, Ashwin, but I'm coming from another angle here. But what I think many people are overlooking is when the All Blacks play important test game, it can be as much as like half the population of New Zealand are watching these games. And obviously, whatever we think, there is a large majority of these are not rugby tragics who watch everything. They watch the All Blacks with their friends and families because it's an event. And he actually is there to explain the game to them too. And this is what I think rugby diehards and rugby tragics like us sometimes can get miffed about. Well, what? Can he just stop stating the obvious, blah, 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 with things like that. But I'm of course he makes mistakes. He had like a shocker last week remember when Brody went down injured and everyone in the whole world see he's sitting holding his arm and Rush, it's the knee.
Something wrong with his knee.
It's the knee. It's the knee.
What? He's holding his shoulder.
Yeah. But you have to give it because it's a really tough gig being a commentator, actually. I think people, it's a little bit like something like, go and play yourself and criticize the players. But actually everyone could actually try to be a commentator. And I have been trying to be a commentator in my early life back home in Sweden for soccer games. And I was awful. It takes years to learn it. Years. And you need to prepare so much for it. People think you just they just hook in the microphone and let's go there. No. It's a very serious job. And I think from what I can see in here, I mean, he's a serious operator. And I also want to add, as like my final say, the combination of Marshall, Nispo, and Smithy, I think they are by far the best rugby commentator trio on this side of the world. Yeah, agree with some Nispo. No, but I especially watching from like a neutral perspective, because there are a couple of things with them. They are never afraid to call out an All Black if they do something wrong. They are never afraid to give a ref some slack if a ref is too soft on the All Blacks. And they're definitely not afraid to give big compliments to Springboks players, Wallabies players if they do something good. Compare that to when watching with the Australian commentators. It's night and day. It's night and day. I mean, they are so much better. And same thing when you're watching like with Irish commentator. They are so biased. It's unbelievable, I mean, it's like proper cheerleading from a commentator box. And so I think
you're trying to see points with the Englishman, aren't you?
English commentators are fantastic too.
I think Stuart Barnes is okay. He's a pretty
good. I think Stuart Barnes, he gets a hard time though.
Yeah, but I think he's doing fine.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Yes. I think for Stuart Barnes, the problem with Stuart Barnes is now it's been so long since he's played that I think some of the stuff he says doesn't apply anymore. That's my problem with Stuart Barnes. And I think you're spot on with that comment of Justin Marshall makes mistakes, definitely, but when you look at the stuff that comes out of Australia and also South Africa to a lesser degree, you just like thank you for just not being a pure cheerleader, and just please don't bag the ref entirely the whole time. He has his faults. He's not perfect, but there is so much worse around.
Yes, there is. I mean, I like to watch the Jaguars games, and there's some like old South African commentators sitting in South Africa commentating. It's horrible, It's so obvious that he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, but anyway, I think that's it, boys. We're gonna wrap it up. It was a pleasure to have you, Ash, here, and it was a pleasure to have you here, Paul, too.
This was brilliant. Thank you very much for hosting.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, but I have experience from TV, Paul,
This might be
before
your
you
show
go, I
this
have
week,
to say, it's just like, if you want to be a soccer commentator, your training's easy. You watch that Simpsons episode. Messi passes it to Ronaldo. He holds it. Yeah, that's about it.
So please, folks, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, or comment, like, subscribe, like, comment, whatever the order is. All of that kind of stuff down below on YouTube, Thingamajig. Share it on all those other social media platforms, and 5-star reviews on your old wonderful podcasts.
All right. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Missing you already.